The Wisp, Chapter 26. Bara stood as rooted as the trees, listening, watching, and hoping for some sign of her friends. The forest was dark, cold, and soundless. The wind didn't rustle a leaf, and there were no rummaging night creatures. She was truly alone. What to do now? There seemed only one option, but her legs refused to move. A second later, the decision was taken from her. The leaner trees bent in a gusty grasp. A cold wind weaved its way through the dark fabric of the forest and found its way to her shadowy back. Bara felt herself moving, propelled forward by the hand of nature. She made a silent wish that Colin and Amy were safe, relented, and entered the maze. Dimmed by the shadows of the looming shrubs, the maze was darker than the clearing. Her eyes adjusted slowly, but soon she could see to go forward. But which way? Details from her dream returned. Bara could almost see the little girl in her red peak coat. She was relieved she didn't. Turn left, then right, and then right again. Just keep going. Bara made one last turn, and there it was, just as it had been in her dream, the cottage and the tower. A bell, barely seen in the night, hung motionless. Its marble tower cast a long shadow. That of the cross disappeared into the darkness of the hedges. Thick ivy lit burgundy by the autumn moon covered most of the stonework and the windows. Only the door was bare. Oh, someone had been inside, and recently. Bara wouldn't bother with the door. She ignored the windows. It didn't matter what was inside the cottage. As she had in her dream, she went around to the back, heading for what had been her goal all along. And there they were, 3 crosses, 2 wooden and 1 iron. In her dream she'd wanted to dig up the middle grave. Now the same yearning. The wind was in agreement. "Dig," it whispered. Bara wasn't keen on unearthing the remains of God knows who or what, but she'd do it all the same. Still, clawing at cemetery dirt with one's bare hands was just a little too revolting. A large rhododendron bush sat to the left of the cottage. Her eyes focused on something stashed between the house and the bush. Bara went closer. It was an ancient wheelbarrow. A collection of wooden handles emerged from the body of the barrel, a rusty pair of pruning shears, and, score, a small, earth-worn spade. The spade would do just fine. She went to the center grave to dig. The spade made its first pass into the soil. Loose earth gave way with ease. The ground was too soft. The soil should have been solid, hardened by time and the cold night, yet it was no firmer than sawdust. Natural earth was never so porous. Bara had been to cemeteries before. The untended graves, those not mowed and weeded by caretakers and loved ones, were always covered with growth. "From death comes life," her mother had said. All around the cottage were signs of life. The grounds could have used a gardener to cut back some of the greenery. The maze's hedges grew as tall as trees. But on the 3 grave mounds it was different. Something had reacted with the soil, eaten away its substance. Nothing grew. Most unnatural. Nothing is natural about any of this, Bara reminded herself. Then she quieted her thoughts and returned to digging. She made 2 more passes before the spade hit something hard and its head came off. She'd dig with her hands after all. Fortunately, the job was near done. Bara smoothed away the last of the dirt to reveal a metal box the size of a shoebox. A raised cross spanned its length and width. She traced her finger over the cold metal, gripped the sides, and pulled. And pulled. The box wouldn't budge. Somehow it found an iron grip in the styrofoam soil. Bara sat back and thought. It's only a box, meant to hold something. It's not the box I need, but what's inside. All it took was a gentle tug. The lid gave way and landed with a soft plop in the earth. There wasn't much light, only that of the moon, but it was enough. A dagger. Hilt to tip, it was the length of her forearm. The handle was the same iron as the box, but the blade was made of some odd metal. It was green, not the green of rusty copper, but a metallic green that glinted in the moonlight. How strange. An ill wind, as they say, began to blow. The hairs on the back of her neck and arms suddenly stood on end. The blood rushed from her head and into her limbs. Someone's watching. Bara knew it. She came to her feet and grasped the dagger in both hands. At least she had a weapon. Movement through the cottage window stole her glance. The window. Of course. Her dream memory had been incomplete. Bara had remembered her way through the maze. She remembered the desire to dig up the grave, but she hadn't remembered the window. Not until it was too late. A pale face formed out of the darkness. Not possible. It wasn't Courtney who stared back. It was the dark-haired boy. Had Bara been pulled from reality into dreams? There was a sound of rushing feet. Colin and Amy came around the cottage. Instantly, Colin was at her side. He held her for an unnaturally long time. Bara pulled away and pointed at the cottage. "In there!" Amy and Colin looked, but there was nothing to see. The dark Bara trailed off when she looked at Colin and rephrased. "The Wisp was there just a second ago." "We believe you," Amy said, "but let's not stick around to find out where she's gone. We need to get out of here." Colin took Bara's arm and noticed for the first time the dagger. "Where did you get that?" He quickly lost interest in his own question. A long, powerful howl tore through the night air. The wolf was near. "Forget it. Tell me later." They ran around to the front of the cottage, heading for the hedges. Bara stopped. "Wait. I don't know if I remember the way." Colin propelled her forward. "It's okay. We made a trail." Colin and Amy had broken off branches as they made their way through the maze, clearing them each time they had to backtrack. It had worked wonderfully and would do so in reverse. A trail of debris led them out in only moments. Now what? Amy pointed to a piece of fabric hanging off a branch at the entrance to the forest. It was her pink scarf. "There it is. Let's go." With the help of Colin's compass, they traveled the path they'd beaten to get to the maze. Eventually they came to a well-worn and familiar trail. They were back in the real-world forest of Windfall. With dawn not far off, they tumbled onto the grounds of St. Catherine's. The Wisp is published on Amazon.com. Also available on Amazon is Monsters, Real and Imagined, Tragic, Frightening, and Funny, All Too Brief, a collection of short stories and poetry. Strays, a collection of short stories and philosophical love poems, and Tattoo, Calling All Soldiers Home, a collection of poems in brevity.